Are you working a job and thinking about trying to invest in rental properties but don't know where to start? Well, let's look at a live potential deal that's on the market right now on Zillow that you could buy if you want to. And I am a real estate investor. Over the last 11 years, I've flipped over 100 houses and have sold over 200 houses. And I've had a portfolio of Airbnbs and long-term rentals. So I'm going to go through my exact process of looking at this deal, what I would flag, what I would approve and disapprove of, and then you can determine if this is a deal for you. Throughout the course of any of this, if you want to go a little bit deeper with me, I have a whole guide about buying foreclosures and cheap homes, which you can add to your portfolio, or you can just do a one-on-one call with me and you can talk about what you're wanting to do. And I can give you a little advice and guidance. And it's fun. I love doing deals and I love looking at real estate and helping people understand the real estate market a little bit more in their first transaction. So this is 643 Emerson Street in Montgomery, Alabama. This is only for $29,000, which is pretty cool. And it's a very, very tempting thing to want to buy. So when you first look at a property, you have to determine the value and then the rental value, because both of those things are going to come into play for how much money you're making or not making, and then how much money you would have to put into the deal and how much money you can get out of the deal. And in the perfect world, you put money in and then you get it out. And I will show you a little bit more what I mean with that in a minute. So I'm going to ask you a question and feel free to participate in the comments here. What do you first notice when you see this property? Now, there's multiple things to look at. What I'm going to tell you right now is not a full all-inclusive thing to look at, but I will get you started, and feel free to talk in the comments about what you see as well. So right here, it might just be the angle of the photo, but potentially there is some sort of slant and some sort of foundation issue, which is not good, never good. Usually on houses like this, they're older and they are more subject to foundation issues than other ones. So that's the number one thing you want to look for. This is built in 1950. We have houses like this in South Carolina where I do a lot of investing, and they always have foundation issues. So you want to flag that. And then also, you can see that there are window units, which means you probably do not have an HVAC system, which is not a deal breaker by any means, but it is something that you would want to look at, either look at putting in or look at probably replacing those window units at some point. You can also see right here that there is shingles that are curving over. I kind of think of them like long grown toenails. What a gross thing to say. Sorry. I think of them as long grown toenails, and they're curving over the roof, which means that the roof might be on the end of its life cycle. Usually you want to see a roof within about 10 years or so. And I guarantee you this one is a little older. Just because they're old shingles doesn't mean they have any problems, though. Here's another thing we notice: some siding potentially rot, which is something that we're going to have to look at as well. All these things come into play for a couple different reasons. They come into play about how much expenses you will need to put into this house throughout the course of your ownership. And it also comes into play about how you want to finance it, or how you could finance it or could not finance it. Has a large backyard, which is pretty cool. So now we're going to see the inside. It looks like they cemented over the fireplace. Looks like they have um, kind of the old ceiling decoration in here. You also see a potential crack, which means there is either some water leakage or just crack due to age, but I would definitely get that checked out, probably due to the old roof. It looks like the floors might be newer. They don't look original. We're going to get into the math here in a second, because this one has a pretty interesting case on it. These, I've done a lot of flipping, and this would be a perfect flip if the value was there. I don't think the value is there into this part of the city, which means I think that pretty much lots of things in this part of the city go for this amount. But we will find out in a minute. So you can see your kitchen here, yellow cabinets, Washer and dryer is in the kitchen, so you do have, well, at least you have a washer. You probably don't have a dryer. And then there's probably some sort of window issue, I can imagine. And then, yeah, you have the garage, you have the bedroom. I'm sure these outlets are the old knob and tube wiring, so the electric is going to be a problem. At least you do have a vent fan coming out of the bathroom. Tile. So this is a good rental or a bad rental. Well, let's look at the numbers and let's find out. I have Claude doing an artifact for us that will be a rental calculator, but I'm going to do this manually just so you can see it right here. First of all, we want to know if the value they're asking is actually the value that it's worth. So they're asking $29,000 for this house. So we're going to look at the comps, and the comps is how you figure out and determine the value of a property. The comps are what the mortgage broker is going to ask for and look for. Your bank, anything is going to look at the comps. So you really want to nail the comps. So this is a 2-bedroom, 1-bath for 864 square foot. Zillow makes it really easy to look at comps, usually, because usually they have the map right here. Let's refresh this page and see if the map will pop up. If not, we actually made a comp bot through ChatGPT that allows you to comp it just by putting in the address. And if anyone wants that, you can just pop that in the comments and I will send it over to you. So here is, okay, great. So here are the nearby homes. You don't want to look at off market. Those are just Zillow estimates. What you want to do is you want to find things that have already sold. So usually an appraisal or an appraiser will look at things that have been sold in the last 6 months closest to the house geographically. You can see that there's a lot of active things, which means there's a lot of houses in this kind of value range, which tells me that number one, you're probably able to pick up 1 or 2 houses for below this range or a little bit less since there's a lot of inventory, which means the sellers can't really sell what they have, which is good for you as the buyer. Another thing it tells me is that um, pretty much they look to be on point with their price, right? It's not like the worst house in the best neighborhood. It's not like there's houses going for $150,000 around here. They're all pretty much going for, 29 to 30 um, in various states. So I'm going to say on the comps, it is valued properly at 29K. Now, there's a couple different things that are important. If it was valued lower, that would be good. If it was valued higher, that would be bad. I know that sounds basic, but lower would be good for a couple different reasons, which means you might be able to refinance, also, which means you might be able to fix and flip if you're into that. And then it also means you would have some equity in the deal. If it's higher, you have no equity, which means it's harder for you to get your money back. You won't be able to refinance. And then also, you would not be able to fix and flip. So it really limits your options, which you don't want. You don't want your options and your exit strategies in real estate to be limited. So knowing that we're pretty much paying retail value for this, let's see if the numbers will work. So this one is pretty interesting because it's tenant occupied, generating $550 a month. So the rental rate is $550 a month. I'll tell you more about that in a second. Home is in good condition and requires minimal maintenance, making an excellent buy and hold opportunity. Start collecting rent from day one while building long-term wealth through consistent cash flow, blah, blah, blah. This is equitable interest listing where a seller is selling only an option contract or signing an interest in the contract, making a purchase or sale agreement of the contract deed. So what you're dealing with here is a wholesaler. Now, this is very rare, but let me tell you what you can't do. You're not going to be able to finance this a bank or really any kind of conventional loan or any loan at all, which is not good. And then the wholesaler is going to take their fee, which is already included in there, which means the seller is going to get less than you're offering. Okay, so That's pretty tricky and that's pretty rare, which is why we do these breakdowns. And also, if you want to join a cohort of people that are looking to invest in rental properties and retire early with rental properties, it is thousands and thousands of dollars for 3 months. But you do work in a small cohort with me, and we go through and we get you your first rental property, or at least we have you make offers on up to five rental properties to get you your first investment. Now, I would tell you to stay away from this one. I do believe if this was your first one, and I'm going to get into why. However, if you're a little bit more of a savvy investor, you might be able to make this one work. So let's look at a mortgage calculator. Even though you won't be able to get a mortgage on this one in the traditional sense, let's still see kind of an example of what your mortgage would be. So at a $29,000 home value, you put down 1,000. Your loan amount would be 28,000, and your interest rate is 6% roundabout. With PMI, this would be with like a FHA loan or whatever, your payment would be 560. If you are doing a conventional loan, you would not have PMI, which is like private mortgage insurance. And then your payment would be a little lower. So let's do we have property taxes in here as well. They're probably a little lower, about 2,000. We can find that um, on the on the listing. But right here we have different, like if you're doing an FHA or VA or USDA, and then I hit pre-approved on now. We just want to hit calculate. So most likely it'd be around 400, 470 in your mortgage a month. So you can look at this and say, hey, look, my mortgage is 470, my rental rate is 550. That's good. I'm making money. Well, that's not true, because you want to factor in a couple different things. You want to factor in repairs, and you want to factor in vacancies, which is around 10%. And so I would put repairs on this one at least $2,000 in your first 2 years, which I think is going to be way more than that with the roof, with the window units. Your vacancy is not really an issue here because you have a tenant. It's probably a very long-term tenant. So let's just take your $2,000 and let's go to 2,000. And then we're going to divide that by 2. And then we're going to divide that by 1, which means that is $83 a month. And then that is going to be something that you want to put in to the calculations. So now you have $43 plus $83, and then, or 470 plus 83, which means you're at 553. All right, so you are basically breaking even on this. And that is on a good day, right? That is with just a very small amount of repairs being done. And that also means if you're breaking even, you're not making any profit, which means you're basically just paying down debt for 30 years if you get a 30-year note on this. And let's just see how long it would take you to pay yourself back. So if you were putting $553 into paying back the $28,000 debt that you have, it would take you 553. It would take you 50 months, or it would take you 4.2 years to make all that back. Now, then you have to ask yourself, well, since I'm a busy professional, I have a job, I have this, I have that, then is this worth it for 4 years to make $29,000? To me, it would not be worth it. But that's just me. So tell me if you think that this would be a good deal for you. I'm going to put a big no on this one. If you want to go further, once again, you can get a little one-on-one time with me. You can email me for the calculator that is generating. We're going to publish it right there. And then we can see if we can work together.